Enzorecto, kalaban ang katiwalian at kasinungalingan, kakampi sa katotohanan at kabutihan.
Good
Good afternoon, Justice.
Good afternoon, Amy. Good afternoon, Patrick. Good afternoon, Ronald.
Or maybe the Justice knows. Justice, what are the legal ramifications of the U.S. Coast Guard patrolling the West Philippine Sea? Are there any?
Well, in our exclusive economic zone, in any exclusive economic zone, there's freedom of navigation and overflight. So any Coast Guard of any country can sail through the exclusive economic zone. But in this case, if the U.S. and other like-minded states will sail in the South China Sea or even just in the West Philippine Sea, that has a great significance because what China is saying, everything within the 10-dash line is national territory of China. So if it's national territory of China, then before you can enter that the 10-dash line, you have to ask the permission of China,
Okay,
which is actually the regulation now of China. So if the U.S. and it's whether it's that is in fact telling China, no, you are wrong. This is not your national territory. This is not your territorial waters. These are the exclusive economic zone of coastal countries like the Philippines. And in effect, they're actually enforcing the arbitral award because when they pass through the West Philippine Sea, they're telling China, we can do this, we can sail here because this is the exclusive economic zone of the Philippines in accordance with the arbitral award and in the exclusive economic of navigation and overflight, and we can conduct naval drills. So they, in fact, enforce the arbitral award in that sense. That's why I've been saying, let's invite all these navies and coast guards of the world to sail in the West Philippine Sea. Because, in effect, they're refuting the position, they're rebutting the position of China.
Okay, correct me if I'm wrong, Justice. I think that, if I'm wrong, is the only difference between our Coast Guard or the U.S. Coast Guard and the Chinese Coast Guard patrolling those waters is the difference that China, on the basis of its claim that its territorial waters can make apprehensions and we cannot.
Well, China is claiming that they can arrest, but that's just a claim. I mean, that doesn't mean that it's legal.
Right.
And if they do arrest our fishermen, then we will go to the tribunal and they will surely lose. There's no way they can win because that's an exclusive economic zone. You know, the South China Sea is also huge. About 20 to 25% of the waters in the middle are high seas. High seas belong to all mankind. No state can own the high seas. And there's freedom of navigation and overflight. There's even freedom of fishing for all coastal and landlocked states. So even people from Nepal theoretically can fish in the high seas of the South China Sea. In other words, it's part of the global commons. What China is saying, that those global commons belong to China. So it's a grand theft of the global commons by China. So the antidote to this is to ask the rest of the world to sail in the South China Sea. Just so they are actually voting on their feet or voting with their sails when they sail in the South China Sea.
With this proposed joint patrols between our Coast Guard and the U.S. Coast Guard, di ba, Justice, mapipigilan yung threat ng China na manghuli ng mga Pilipino trespassers sa kanilang territorial waters, halimbawa sa Ayungin? Kung sakaling mangyari ito, ibig sabihin yung kanilang threat last month will just be an empty threat. Ibig sabihin mapapahiya sila. So will they do everything para ma-implement yung threat, para maipakita that they can enforce it? Dahil kung hindi nila ma-enforce, magmumukha silang kahihaya.
That's it. That's why I said it's an overreach. And lately, the Chinese announced that we don't have to worry because they will not arrest our fishermen. They walk back, actually, because they know it cannot be implemented. And if they implement it, they will have to implement it against everyone. No? and they have to arrest the fishermen not only from the Philippines but from Vietnam, Malaysia, and Indonesia, and even Brunei, if there are people from Brunei who still fish, no? But it's something that definitely China cannot enforce. First of all, China said anyone who enters or exits the waters within the 10-dash line will have to ask our permission. Otherwise, we will arrest and seize those vessels. They cannot do that to the U.S. Navy, to the U.S. Coast Guard. That's why the best way to stop this claim of China is just to send all the navies of the world and all the coast guards of the world to the South China Sea. And China cannot do anything, and so their entire claim will collapse.
Justice, there are questions about the nature of the China Coast Guard. You're aware that they are under their maritime command, which is under Xi Jinping, and they are authorized actually to engage in combat maneuvers, to engage other vessels in combat. Are you aware of international rules governing the nature of Coast Guards? Meron ba diyang mga common rules? Is China actually authorized to give those functions to its Coast Guard, which is supposed to be civilian, di ba?
Well, it depends on the internal law. China's Coast Guard used to be separate from its military. Now it's under the military command. So it's actually part of the People's Liberation Army. It's under the chain of command of the military. But there are other countries also like that. But we used to be like that, but we separated it during the time of President Ramos. We separated the Coast Guard from the military, so it's no civilian, so that we can actually now ask loans from Japan, because Japan will not give loans to the military, but only to civilian agencies. So it depends on the law of each country. Whether the Coast Guard will be under the military or it's a civilian agency. In the U.S., it's civilian during peacetime, but it is under the U.S. Navy in wartime.
Yeah.
So it's possible for us actually to go back to the former functions of the Coast Guard before Fidel Ramos's time, meaning pwede siyang similar to the China Coast Guard na merong ganyan, law enforcement functions. They call it law enforcement actually.
Yeah, it can be done, but we've decided that we can keep it civilian in character so that it can receive foreign aid and foreign loans.
Justice, on a different note, yung government natin ay nagsasabi na naghahanda silang mag-file ng case again sa UNCLOS against China based on environmental grounds. Di ba mas mahirap ito kaysa dun sa final natin sa UNCLOS na magkasama tayo sa Den Haag nung ating sinampa sa UNCLOS. Pero di ba mas simple yung kaso na yon kaysa dito sa environmental case, dahil kinakailangan mo ng maraming scientific basis para ipakita na talagang wasak yung environment sa ating EEZ, na kinakailangan ng mas maraming research. Anong tingin nyo dito sa planong ito?
Well, actually, the first arbitration, in a way, simple and yet complex party also, kasi you have to divide it in two parts. The first part was whether the 9-dash line was compatible, was legal under UNCLOS. Madali lang yan because it's just a purely legal issue, no?
Yeah.
So the other one, we also said that China destroyed the marine environment, and we had to present marine scientific studies. There has to be an assessment by marine scientists that there was actually damage to the marine ecosystem, and we commissioned foreign marine biologists to do this. And that is the number one condition. If you want to file an environmental case against China, we have to get at least one, I recommend two, marine scientific studies, one by foreign experts and another by our local experts, so that they will say that the damage was done by men. It's a man-made damage and not by a typhoon or a storm because of course it has to be an assessment because we don't know what happened. There's no eyewitness, no? We don't have a video footage of the destruction. So it will have to be the marine biologists who will examine and investigate whether this was the destruction of the coral reefs was caused by a typhoon, no? Or not, or by humans. So that is the essential thing. Before we file, we must have this. If we don't have it, then let's not file.
Yeah.
That's what I recommend to the government. Get a marine scientific assessment because we did that in the first arbitration.
Yeah.
May kulanong salita na ang ibig sabihin dito ay ang pagkakaisa.
Bunyog Party List.
Halika na, bunyog party list ka na. Halika na, bunyog party list ka na.
Sa susunod, ang atinang suportahan, Bunyog Party List, nagtataguyod ng katotohanan, lumalaban para sa